Welcome to Widowcast Podcast, where you'll find the strength to get through your journey and the skills to coach other widows to do the same. This is not a grief group. This is your journey, and it just may show you the way to make something amazing come out of the emotional pain and trauma of your loss. I'm your host, Joanne Filomena. I'm the best-selling author of the book Widowed and of The Widow Coach. I'm also a professionally certified life coach. Let the healing and the personal journey back to who you are begin. Welcome back, my friends. Today I want to talk about finding your determination to make all this mean something in your life. And I think at some point along the way, I lost touch with what my initial determination was for this. And I wanted to just kind of circle back around and share that with all of you. Because for so many of you, you're still in emotional pain and very stuck. But behind all that, I hear it in your voice. I hear this need to want to make it all mean something, to want to make something out of your life at this point. You know, I talk about the Widow Coaches class and the fact that what I do now is teach widows how to coach other widows. I train and certify widow coaches with the life coaching tools that I'm certified with and the way that I use them with widows. And then for those that want to go on and build their own business, they can do a 1-year mastery program with me, and I am helping them build a coaching business, helping them know how to get themselves out there to find the women who need their help. But somewhere along the way, I think I softened because my approach to marketing this has always been very soft. I have so much compassion for all of my sister widows out there. I really, truly do. And it's in that compassion that I've been reaching out. And maybe that's the wrong place, because when I got in touch again with where I was 3 years ago when I became a certified coach, it was something totally different. It really surprised me. You know, I was talking in a mastermind to a group of other business women, and we were talking about getting really vulnerable and open in the world so that we could kind of crack ourselves open and let other people see who we are, so they would know who it is that they would be working with. And I said, you know, I think we have to get really vulnerable with ourselves too, really vulnerable and honest. And that's when I began to get in touch with something. And what it was my determination 3 years ago, right? I made notes, and the notes I posted on a graphic. If you follow me on Facebook, if you're part of my Widowed book club group, you probably saw this, but I'll share what it said. It said, I've lost my life partner. Now I'm a widow and I have nothing more to lose. So stand back. Think we're to be pitied. Think we're to be avoided because you don't know what to say to us. Think we're all just depressed and desperate. Stand back and watch us. We're taking our lives to the next level. We are redefining what widowed looks like. We are widows coaching widows. Who's with me? And that's how I felt. Like there was this little chip on my shoulder, right? I'll give you a little background. If you haven't gone all the way back through all 88 episodes of this to find episode 1, where I share my story, a little piece of my story is right before my husband suddenly died, I was laid off from the company that I had worked with for over 20 years. A bigger company had come and bought up the smaller company, leveraged out the smaller company like 18 months before. And I thought at that time that my job was going to be gone because I was the director of operations, and clearly this company had their own director of operations. But they did keep me on, had me managing accounts, but they unfortunately had leveraged out their credit too far and overcommitted, and they had to file Chapter 13 and reorganize. And in that process, they began doing what they were calling workforce reductions. That means they were laying people off. I made it through several rounds of layoffs, but they did eventually get to me, and I knew they would. I was one of the last people hired into their company. So, kind of last in, first out is the way I looked at it. So I was laid off from my job about 5 months before Jim passed away, and I had turned 60 years old that year. So I was a little thrown to be laid off at the age of 60. I thought, who is going to hire somebody in there who is 60, right? But it was a mixed blessing, clearly, because unbeknownst to me, Jim would die at the end of the year suddenly of a heart attack. And it gave us those last few months of his life very closely together because he had always been retired, just always been retired. And with my not working, and he kept saying, don't go back to work. You don't have to go back to work. And I would say, of course I do. If anything should happen to you, I would have no income. Right? Are you crazy? I have to have something to fall back on. Fortunately, during that time, there was a company that had started reaching out to me and talking to me about coming to work for them. The higher-ups were actually buying the company out from the family that owned it, and once they took ownership of the company, they wanted to bring me on board. Fast forward, at the end of the year, Jim did suddenly die one night, massive coronary event. It was tough. Especially my biggest freak out was the finances. And that was really hard for me because my brain was going back and forth between having just lost him and how deep that pain was to freaking out over the fact that there was now no income coming into the household at all. Fortunately, about a week after he died, the offer letter showed up in email from this company that had been reaching out to me. And I accepted that offer letter immediately. I didn't negotiate. I just signed it and sent it back. I was so grateful to have something, right? And it started out to be awesome. I went to work for their company. I could see the cracks right away in that company. I changed some procedures that just showed them immediate results in the company. It was amazing, and I felt really good about what I was capable of. But then it started to get kind of ugly, and they had me crunching numbers, getting all the fine print data on every employee and telling me, lay this one off, lay that one off. And I sat here one morning and thought, why is it that I hate this job? This is what I've been doing for over 20 years and loving it, and now I don't love it. And I realized that what I didn't love about it was I didn't get to coach and nurture my teams anymore. For 20 years, I had been coaching in the corporate world, working with my teams so that they were happy in their job, happy in their lives. They were just creative, energetic people. They did not dread coming to work each morning. And so my teams performed just top notch. Right? But with this new company, all of a sudden they had me so bogged down in finding all this data on employees so they could see who to fire. I didn't have time to work with my actual people, and I hated that. And I heard this voice clearly say to me, now's the time for you to just become a life coach. This is what you're doing with the rest of your life, not this. This isn't what you love. Coaching is what you loved. And I thought, wow, I have a whole backstory about the voice, you all. You have to go back through my podcast and find it. But anyway, I immediately started researching, what is this life coaching thing? I just didn't even know what it was at that point, or if it was a thing. I just heard the voice say, you need to be a life coach now. I thought, what? What the what? So I Googled it and I started looking for life coach schools, and I started looking into them. Some of them were too corporate. Many of them were just too staunchly ingrained in the old school of psychological thought, which is not the way I coached at all. And then I found the life coach school out in California. And they clicked immediately. And I knew that's where I would go for my certification and set up my own practice. Meanwhile, things with this job just went from bad to worse, to the point where they were just totally taking advantage of me. They were taking advantage of me as a widow. It's like you have nobody else around, so you're the one that can just work all day, every day. They were expecting me to be available to them 7 days a week. And every 6 or 7 weeks, they didn't want to pay the overnight help desk anymore, so they were rotating it through management staff. So about every 6th week, I would finish work at 5 o'clock, and they would turn on the phones in the office over to my phone number, and now all of the help desk calls would come into me through the overnight, right on up till 8 o'clock the next morning, when I would have to start work from my job again. So that was like for a week working 24 hours a day. Crazy stuff. It got to the point that I could not even leave my house for a few hours, that they would get pissed if something came up and I was not around to jump on their server immediately. It kind of came to a head, and I flat quit that job. And I'm telling you, it was scary. And yes, it took a lot of guts, because that was my only income. And I walked away from that paycheck. I just said, nothing is worth this kind of emotional manipulation that I'm going through. Nothing is worth waking up every morning and dreading what you have to face for the day. I've decided I was worth so much more than that. And I did. I just walked out. I don't advise you walk out on your jobs, but that's what I did. And when I walked out on that job, that's a little where this stuff came from deep inside of me that said, hey, I'm a widow and I've got nothing more to lose, guy. So stand back, get out of my way. I am becoming something here. Don't pity me. Don't think you can roll right over the top of me. Just watch what I do with my life. And it was that fire and determination that made me open my coaching practice, work hard to become a phenomenal coach. I ended up with my podcast, Weight Coach, Widowcast. I wrote 2 books and published them. Now I stop to take a breath 3 years later, and it blows my mind, you guys. It blows my mind when I look back on who I've become, the woman who I've become, and how my life has leveled up. I have become somebody totally different, somebody who knows her own worth, who has the confidence to get out there and fight for my worth and fight for those that I want to help too. That's where it all comes from. And I think every one of you has this deep inside, because when you become widowed, it's like you are thrown into the fire right then and there. And you can come up out of those ashes and make all this trauma and loss mean something for you. You can let it drive your growth, whether you become a coach or you start selling something from a multi-level network marketing company. You decide you want to sell cosmetics and help women by doing makeovers for them to give them more pride and more ability to get themselves out in the world. Do that. Let yourself just be propelled forward with any of the anger and pain that's left inside of you. Let it push you forward. Because that's kind of where I came from. And as you know, I did not start out coaching widows. I started out coaching weight loss and stop overeating. It's also a passion of mine. And when I first set up my coaching practice, I felt that being widowed was still too new and raw for me. I felt like I would just get on the phone with another widow and we would just cry together. You know, it's kind of like I could sit down and put my arm around your shoulder and tell you, oh, you're feeling all the same things I felt. But that's not coaching. That's being an amazing good friend. But it's not teaching the other widow how to look at her own thoughts and drive her own life forward. And that's what I wanted to do and share. And after I launched this podcast, because I knew there was nothing out there for widows, not one thing, and thought, let me just share my story and see if it helps someone. That's when I started to hear back from listeners wanting me to coach them, because you all knew I was a professional life coach working as a professional certified life coach. That's when things began to change, and they changed rapidly, so that I was no longer coaching weight loss. My weight loss clients kind of all dwindled off because I was coaching more and more and more widows. And then I realized that what I really wanted for the widows was for them to have what I had. I wanted, and because I discovered at that time I was the only widow coach in the country, possibly on the planet. I was the widow coach. And I knew there is no way I could help every widow in the country. I knew we needed at least 1,000 widow coaches in this country, and that would be just a start, right? Just scratching the surface of what is needed. And that's when I decided to develop my class so that I could teach widows how to life coach other widows. And at the same time, set up a practice for themselves. Let them be driven forward with this fire to help others and pass that torch along. That's what it's all about, you guys. So, if you feel this way too, I want you to reach out to me. You can go to widowcoaches.com and pop in your name and your email address, and you will get an email back telling you where you can go fill out a questionnaire, see if we can get in touch with each other to chat about this. If you put in your name and your email address and you don't get a notice back, you need to check your junk mail, because that first email is automatic. It automatically is going to come back to you with that link. So if you're not seeing it, it's not that it didn't get sent. It's wound up in your junk mail file. Okay? If you have trouble with that at widowcoaches.com, email me directly. I'm Joanne, Joann, no E, Joann at joannethelifecoach.com. That's my email address. I would love to hear from you. If this fires you up too, let's talk about it. Right? I've lost my life partner. Now I'm a widow and I have nothing more to lose. So stand back. Think we're to be pitied. Think we're to be avoided because you don't know what to say to us. Think we're just depressed and desperate. Stand back and watch us. We are taking our lives to the next level. We are redefining what widowed looks like. We are widow coaches coaching widows. Who's with me? Get out there and find some joy in your life.